Welcome back to the Pride Channel, where we celebrate queer people, queer history, queer culture, and the stories that remind us just how far we've come. Today, we're heading to the Netherlands to meet a politician who made history in 2026 when he became the country's first openly gay prime minister. His name is Rob Jetten, and his rise to the highest political office in the Netherlands is a fascinating story of ambition, perseverance, changing attitudes, and perhaps most importantly, representation. So who exactly is Rob Jetten? How did he get here? And what does his historic position mean for the LGBTQ community?
Europe is faced by some grave challenges with the war in Ukraine, the war in Iran, and it's time for us to step up and to do a better job for our citizens in terms of defense, in terms of a stronger economy. And I'm very much looking forward to be part of this family here and to do a better job for each and every one.
Rob Jetten was born on March 25, 1987, in Veghel, in the Netherlands. He studied public administration at Radboud University Nijmegen, eventually earning both a bachelor's and a master's degree, with his master's specializing in good governance. Before entering national politics, he worked for ProRail, the organization responsible for managing the Dutch railway infrastructure. But politics had already become an important part of his life. Jetten became involved with Democrats 66, better known as D66, a progressive and social liberal Dutch political party, and he eventually served on Nijmegen's municipal council. He also became chair of the Young Democrats, the youth organization associated with D66. His breakthrough on the national stage came in 2017, when he was elected to the Dutch House of Representatives. Just a couple of years later, in 2019, he became parliamentary leader of D66. That was a pretty remarkable rise for someone who was still relatively young. But Jetten had established himself as one of the party's most recognizable figures. He became particularly associated with issues including climate policy, energy, and the future of the Dutch economy. And from January 2022 until July 2024, he served as Minister for Climate and Energy Policy in the fourth government of Mark Rutte.
Well, obviously we all have our differences, also regarding to climate negotiations, but we have to keep in mind that we're all members of the Team Humanity.
Then came another important chapter. In August 2023, Jetten became leader of D66, and when the Netherlands went to the polls in October 2025, he led the party into what would become a surprisingly strong election campaign. D66 emerged as the largest party by votes and seats, tied with Geert Wilders' PVV on 26 seats, but narrowly ahead in the popular vote. Jetten's campaign presented him as an optimistic, solutions-focused alternative at a time when Dutch politics had become increasingly polarized. He campaigned on issues including housing, education, climate, and immigration, while also emphasizing cooperation rather than political division. And then, on February 23rd, 2026, Rob Jetten officially became Prime Minister of the Netherlands. The new government was sworn in at Huis ten Bosch Palace in the presence of King Willem-Alexander. His government is a coalition between D66, the People's Party for Freedom and Democracy, or VVD, and the Christian Democratic Appeal, or CDA. It is a minority government, meaning Jetten and his coalition partners have to negotiate with opposition parties to get legislation through Parliament.
We can make sure that all member states here do that. One Team Humanity, safeguarding this planet.
But there was another reason the moment was historic. At 38 years old, Rob Jetten became the youngest prime minister in Dutch history, and he became the first openly gay person to hold the country's highest political office. That distinction matters because political representation isn't simply about putting a different face on a familiar job. When someone who is openly gay reaches one of the most powerful political positions in a country, it sends a message to millions of people that being queer and being a national leader are not contradictory things. You can be openly gay and still be ambitious. You can have a same-sex partner and still be taken seriously as a politician. You can bring your entire self into public life without having to hide an important part of who you are. And that's particularly interesting in the case of the Netherlands. The country has long been associated internationally with LGBTQ rights and liberal social attitudes. In 2001, the Netherlands became the first country in the world to legally open civil marriage to same-sex couples. So in some ways, Jetten becoming prime minister feels like another chapter in a much longer story. The country that became a pioneer in marriage equality eventually reached the point where an openly gay man could stand at the head of its government. But even in a country with a strong reputation for LGBTQ acceptance, representation at the very top of politics still took time.
With a smile and a sunny attitude, Rob Jetten charmed his way into the hearts of Dutch voters. His belief, as per his campaign slogan, was, "It is possible."
Jetten has also never treated his sexuality as something that needed to be hidden in order to succeed politically. He has been openly gay throughout his political career, and his personal life has occasionally become part of the public conversation as well. He is engaged to Nicolas Keenan, an Argentine field hockey player, and their relationship has attracted attention in the Netherlands and internationally. Their story is another interesting aspect of Jetten's visibility because it presents something that can sometimes feel surprisingly radical simply by being completely ordinary. A gay politician having a relationship, getting engaged, and building a life with his partner while simultaneously pursuing a demanding political career.
My message to everyone is that if we run on positive platforms and positive campaigns, it's possible to defeat the populists and to work together with the broad, middle and the centrist parties to show people that we can deliver real results.
Of course, becoming the first openly gay prime minister doesn't mean Jetten's political career should be viewed entirely through the lens of his sexuality. And that's an important distinction. Rob Jetten is not prime minister because he is gay. He is prime minister because he built a political career, led his party to an election victory, and successfully formed a government. His sexuality is one part of his identity, not the entirety of his political platform. But precisely because he is openly gay, his position carries a symbolic significance that goes beyond his individual career. And that symbolism becomes even more powerful when you consider how different political representation looks to someone growing up today compared with someone growing up several decades ago. For generations of queer people, the idea of seeing an openly gay person leading a country would have seemed almost impossible. LGBTQ politicians have often had to decide how much of their personal lives they could reveal, whether being openly gay would damage their careers, and whether voters would accept them. Today, someone like Rob Jetten can walk into the highest political office in the Netherlands without pretending to be someone he's not. That doesn't mean everything is suddenly perfect. Jetten's premiership has already demonstrated that being a visible LGBTQ political figure can come with a price. Shortly after taking office, he spoke publicly about receiving threats and said he was pressing charges regularly over anti-gay abuse directed at him. So while representation has undoubtedly changed, the hostility faced by openly LGBTQ public figures hasn't disappeared. Visibility can be empowering, but it can also make someone a more obvious target for people who object to queer people occupying positions of power.
Most Dutch people understand that the economy needs talent from abroad. They want to properly accommodate people fleeing war and violence while also being strict with those who abuse the system. We can choose to listen to your grumbling and hatred for another 20 years, or we can choose with the positive forces to simply get to work and tackle this problem and solve it.
And that's why Jetten's story is worth paying attention to. The historic headline is obviously that the Netherlands now has its first openly gay prime minister. But perhaps the bigger story is what that headline represents. A gay man can stand at the center of Dutch political life, lead a government, represent his country internationally, and still be openly himself. He doesn't have to become less gay to become more powerful. He doesn't have to erase his personal life in order to be taken seriously. And he doesn't have to make his sexuality the only thing people know about him. There is something genuinely encouraging about that. Representation works best when queer people aren't only portrayed as activists, entertainers, or characters whose stories revolve around coming out and discrimination. Representation also means seeing LGBTQ people simply existing in every part of society, as teachers, doctors, athletes, actors, journalists, business owners, parents, and yes, Prime Minister. Rob Jetten's achievement is significant precisely because it expands that picture of what a queer life can look like.
38-year-old representing the socially liberal D66 party is tipped to become the youngest Prime Minister for the Netherlands.
And perhaps one of the most interesting things about Jetten's story is that history is being made while he is simply getting on with the job. He has housing problems to tackle, political divisions to navigate, international relationships to manage, and an entire government to lead. Being the first openly gay prime minister is an enormous historical milestone, but eventually the goal of representation is for the milestone to become normal. One day, perhaps, the fact that a prime minister is gay won't be the remarkable part of the story at all. It will simply be one fact about the person holding the office. For the Pride Channel, that's ultimately what makes Rob Jetten's story so fascinating. Yes, he He is the first openly gay prime minister in Dutch history. Yes, he is the youngest person ever to hold the position. And yes, his rise represents an important moment for LGBTQ visibility. But perhaps the most powerful part is that he didn't have to choose between being openly gay and being politically successful. He was able to be both. And that is the kind of progress worth celebrating. Not because queer people need to prove that they can lead countries, but because every generation deserves to grow up knowing that there is no ceiling on what their lives can become simply because of who they love. Rob Jetten is now writing his own chapter in Dutch political history. But whether you agree with his politics or not, the image of an openly gay man serving as prime minister is one that would have been unimaginable to countless queer people in previous generations.
In 2017, he was first elected as an MP and served as climate minister under Mark Rutte's government.
So Rob Jetten isn't just a footnote in LGBTQ history. He is part of a much bigger story about visibility, acceptance, and the gradual expansion of what society considers possible. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about that story is that the next generation gets to look at someone like him and think, why couldn't that be me?
And I'm also very happy that the European Commission was able to find a technical way forward so that we can fix this pipeline issue so that this loan can get into effect as soon as possible.
Thanks for watching the Pride channel. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comment. Until next time, stay proud.